Hello everybody and welcome to the Football Philosophy channel. Massive weekend, unbelievable result just came through, by the way. I couldn't believe my eyes. I noticed that West Brom were winning at Wolves 1-0 and then Wolves took the lead 2-1, and I thought that was the end of the scoring in that game. Or I thought Wolves might have scored a couple more, and West Brom ended up winning 3-2. So they only won 2 games all season, and suddenly they're right on the coattails of the teams that are just above them in that relegation zone, or just outside that relegation zone. So it's taking fascinating shape at both ends of the table. But obviously, specifically, we're interested more so in the top end. Massive game tomorrow. Absolutely can't wait for it, and we'll discuss that and what we think the team might be. I mentioned mine yesterday, but I'm sure 1 or 2 people will get involved in the comments asking or mentioning who they think should play. So we can cover that at the I've come live mainly to Rahul put a few questions on Twitter to me, and he must have spent a lot of time working it all out what he wanted to ask me. It was quite long. It was like War and Peace, to be honest. So I thought to be fair, I'll go live on YouTube, and I sent Rahul a message to let him know that I'd be doing this. So I'm going to go through not all of them. Like I say, it was quite lengthy, but I'm going to go through most really of what he's written and give a few replies. And the first thing he sent, Rahul, he was talking about LVG, and he was talking about my prevalence for liking the simple game and the short passing game, and most of his questions are about that, as you'll see as we go through it. But he also likened my enjoyment of that sort of football to be similar to Louis van Gaal's when we had LVG in charge. So the first thing I'm going to discuss is the first thing that Rahul sent to me, which was a photograph of something that's been knocking about on Twitter for the last few days about when we were under LVG, and everybody who's against LVG is putting that up as though it's all negative, and I don't see it all as negative whatsoever. And I'm going to go through it. There are 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 7 points on it, and most of them, to me, are either not right or not negative. The first one being at the top, average possession. It doesn't tell you how far into the season it was this, but it says United have scored 20 goals at this stage. That's the figure at the bottom. So 20 goals in, I would imagine we've probably played about 16 or 17 games, I would have thought. It doesn't tell you that how many games have been played. But the start at the top is average possession, and it says 60% average possession, and then it gives you the rank in the Premier League at that stage. And United's average possession of 60% was ranked first in the league. Now, so here's the first one. This, to me, is a positive. I'm writing that down. That's a positive. That's the style of football that the best teams play. Possession football, whatever sort of possession it is. City at the minute play possession-based football. Liverpool play possession-based football. Bayern Munich play possession-based football. Even the truly great Barcelona teams of a few years ago now with Xavi and Iniesta. Obviously, you're not going to have players like those, but it is possession-based football. Okay, some of their football scintillating, all the ticky-tacky, as they called it, little passes, rat-a-tat-tat around the edge of the box. Obviously, you do well to emulate that, but at the end of the day, it's possession-based football. I'm pretty sure against some of the lower teams that we played against, if you could find the stats, which I'm sure they're out there, I bet you'll find Barcelona sometimes at 70, 75%, maybe even 80%. I've seen the odd game. I have seen the odd game where it's gone up there and it's gone 80% possession to the odd team. So I'm pretty sure all these big teams do have possession like that. When you've got possession, don't forget, the opposition can't. I was about to say the opposition can't score against you. They can't score against you. You do see the very, very occasional crazy own goal where it's a stupid back pass or something like that. Keeper lets it go under his foot. Or there was one the other week in the Premier League where he was out of his goal. But generally speaking, you can't concede a goal if you've got the ball. So that's the first thing. But if you can't concede a goal when you've got the ball, you've obviously got a chance of scoring as well. You're trying to build up, you're trying to create openings, and if you've got 60% possession, there's a stat out there that's easily available, readily available, that the ball is only in play in a Premier League game on average for about 60 minutes of each game. If it's in play for 60 minutes of each game and you've got 60% of that possession, I make that 34%. I think that's right, which would leave the opposition with 26%, or is it 36 and 26? I worked this out today, but it's around 34-35%, and they've only got 24, 25, 26%. So it's quite a difference out of 60 minutes of play. So when they've got such a short amount of the ball, they've got much less chance of creating chances against you as you have got of creating chances against them. And this is how City play. And when City beat us 2-0 the other week, as much as we had a couple of our chances, and they didn't play us off the park, but I think any fair-minded person would say you could clearly see that City were the better team. I think most fair-minded people would say that City deserved to win. And surely coincidentally, by the way, because it marries up with that, City had 60% possession that day and we had 40% possession. And that is what most of the best teams do. They work on possession. So you might say, well, what type of possession? So first of all, don't forget, Van Gaal, this doesn't tell you if it's his first season or his second season, by the way. Van Gaal is trying to build his philosophy into the team. So as I move on now into the next bits of it, even if it's slow to get going, even if a lot of the passes you want to try and get them a little bit more progressive, you've got to work on that. You've got to work with the players, and you've got to, the great Barcelona team. It didn't happen overnight. They weren't just sort of an ordinary team one day. Don't forget we finished seventh when Moyes was in charge. Barcelona weren't just an ordinary team one day and a world-beating team the next day. So it does take a little bit of time. But what I mean about Louis van Gaal, I thought we were actually looking like going places. The second bit on that is passes in own half, it says. And I'm reading these out because it's put up there on Twitter as though everything was negative. So don't forget, first one, I'm calling it a positive. We had 60% possession. That's good. Secondly, passes in on our 3,416 passes so far that season in our own half, and we ranked first in the Premier League. Now then, there could be reasons for that. Well, there are reasons for that. If you're playing against teams that have got a low block, you also want to try and get them out. You want to draw them out. You want to try and get them out so there's a little bit more space for you to play in when you do get the ball into their half. I mean, if they won't come forward, there's not a lot of point in it. But now there's no guarantee here. We don't know what I will guarantee you, without a shadow of a doubt, without even seeing one of the games, without having looking at the facts, because we're looking at stats here from an old picture. What we haven't got in front of us is the actual footage of a game, of any given game. If we get the footage of any given game, there will not be a single solitary game where the opposition, I don't think they even called it a low block, even though it was 6 years ago or 5 years ago. If the opposition were playing with a low block and all the team were back in their own half, you will not find that United were knocking pointless passes around in their own half. The idea of the passes in your own half will always be to try, A, to draw them out, but B, to get past them and get into their half. So although I've said the first ones are positive, I do appreciate people might say, oh, that's boring, knocking it from side to side in your own half, which you'll see plenty of. You're going to watch United and Liverpool tomorrow, you'll see plenty of it from both teams tomorrow, knocking the ball from side to side, hoping to find that opening. So I'm not going to say it's a positive that they had lots and lots of passes in their own half and they were ranked first in the table, but I'm also not going to say it's a negative. You need the proof. You need to be able to look at the game and sort of say that's right, or it's good, or it's not good, and so on. So I'm not agreeing necessarily that it was a bad thing. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but I'm not saying it's a bad thing. And although they are ranked first, there's something else. When you go top of a list like that, they've got 3,416 passes. Whoever the other good teams were in the Premier League that season, United might be ranked first, But I don't know. Say it was City and Chelsea. I don't think Liverpool would quite come so strong by that stage as they have been the last couple of years. But I think City was strong. Probably Chelsea was strong. Maybe Arsenal. Perhaps Spurs. Spurs would change. Oh, and Leicester even. I wouldn't mind betting that if you look at those teams' passes in their own half, some of them won't be too far behind. Even though they've United are first, the better teams will have more passes than the lower teams. They won't be that far behind. It might be that some of them might only be 50 passes behind, 50 or 100 passes. What, in 15 games? It isn't a big deal, it really isn't. An extra 4 or 5 passes a game in your own half, if that's the case. But like I say, we haven't got those stats. We've only got the stat that United were top of the list. So I'm not saying that I'm not agreeing that is either a positive, well, it's being put up as a negative. I'm not agreeing. I'm calling that equal. Then it's got percentage of backward passes. 16%, United, Premier League rank first. This stat absolutely astonishes me. 16% of the passes backwards. 16% is less than 1 in 6. I'm astonished it's so low. And yet we are ranked first in the Premier League. I'd like to know where these stats come from. I'm just absolutely amazed by it. If you think about 6 passes in a game, when the goalkeeper gives it to the full back, because this is what happens. It's not too many teams in Premier League football just kick it up the field. They tend to throw it out, pass it around, so the full back might pass it to the centre back, get it back. Nearly always give it forward, one pass to a midfield player, get it back to go forward again. I am absolutely astonished that 16%, only 16% of the passes, in fact, I'm checking, am I reading it right? Percentage of passes backwards, 16%. Again, ranked first in the Premier League. I don't care that we ranked first. 16% of your passes being backwards is perfectly fine and even less than I could possibly have imagined. Only 1 in 6. Only 1 out of 6 passes is backwards. So the fact that they ranked first in the Premier League for that, think of this as well. If you get the ball to the edge of the box and your striker lays it back, this is counting all passes. It's not just in your own half. That's percentage of backwards passes. Your forwards have to pass the ball backwards. So I'm actually disbelieving of the figure. I'd love to know who keeps the stats, because you give the ball to your forwards, they have to give it back to you. You give the ball to your winger, it doesn't always take, well, it rarely takes a full back on these days. They nearly always check back and give it back. I'm talking about for all teams. So for only 1 out of 6 passes to be backwards, slightly more than 6. It's 6 16s are 96, aren't they? So we've not quite got the 100% there. So less or more, whichever way you want to put it round, of 6. You need more than 6 passes to get 1 pass backwards. So I think that's astonishingly low. And I don't care that we ranked first in the league on that picture. So I'm counting that as a positive, an unbelievable positive, and it's being put out there as a negative. I'm astonished. Percentage of passes forward, 31%, ranked 20th. Ranked 20th, bottom of the league for passes forward. 31% is 1 in 3 virtually. 331s are 93, so it's just, you probably need 3.5 passes, call it, if that, for a forward pass. Again, I'm not despondent with that. I'm going to call that an equal. They might be 20th, they might be, but so what? Like I say, this is how top teams play. Think about it. The goalie rolls it out to the centre back. He passes it to the full-back. The full-back looks forward. There's nothing on. He rolls it back to his centre-back, who passes it to this side. There's 3 passes before you've even thought about going forward. Well, you might have thought about it, but there's nothing on. So I'm not wearing it that it's a bad thing. I don't think that percentage of 31% of you, in other words, virtually 1 in 3. 1 in 3 of your passes is forward. To me, seems It's more than I would have thought. It's more than I would have thought. How on earth we are ranked 20th in the league? Again, I'm questioning the actual people who count the passes and how they do it. I really am. But to me, if 1 out of 3 of your passes, I know it's a little bit more, 1 out of 3.2 or whatever, but if 1 in 3 of your passes is forward, that's a lot of passes going forward, I think. A lot of passes. So again, I've got 2 positive and 2 equals. I'm going to call that a draw. Passes into the final third. This is a difficult one. 12%, I think it says. 19th. Difficult one to discuss that, really. It is a difficult one. Passes into the final third. I mean, obviously, if you get the ball into your final third, is this counting passes while you're already in your final third? If it's just a pass into the final third from outside the final third, you might be completing. This is the idea of getting the ball into the final third. You've not always got an opening straight away. I'd like to see, there isn't a stat on there saying completed passes inside the final third. Maybe if we had completed passes inside the final third, maybe we were ranked 2nd or 3rd in the league for that. But they thought, well, that was too good, so maybe they missed that one off. I don't know, obviously. But passes into the final third, you're only going to pass it into the final third every so often, aren't you? You're going to have some passes while you're in the final third. So I'll take it. I will accept it as a negative, but that's 1 negative out of the first 5 that I've looked at. Chances created, 15th. It says, so that's 2 positives, 2 equals for me, and 1 negative. That's all I'm having it as, 1 negative. Not enough passes into the final third. Chances created. This one's completely off the scale. 15th, it says 121 chances created. Now, we're going to speak about Bruno in a bit because Rahul's asked me about Bruno. And it's not because it was Bruno, this is entirely because of what the commentator said. Commentator said when I was watching United play West Ham a few weeks ago when we were one down at half time and we won 3-1. And the commentator said after the game, and I would have checked this, I don't care who it was. It just happened to be that it was Bruno. And the commentator said Bruno has created 7 chances in the second half. He's only played half a game, and nobody else had created like more than 2 or 3. So I thought, 7 chances, and I couldn't remember. I thought, surely we haven't had 7 chances as a team, let alone one player. Where have we had 7 chances? I can't remember their goalkeeper making loads of saves or us missing loads of close-in shots. So I thought, I'll have to study this and work out what they're actually counting as a chance. And when I watched it, I was astonished. They're counting a chance as when you give the ball to a teammate. This is all it can be, by the way, because I watched it and counted them and I thought, that's got to be 1, and I thought, that's got to be 1. And it did come to 7 in the end. So every time the ball got passed to somebody who had a shot, it was counted as a chance created. In one particular instance, the ball was given to Marcus on the left wing and he beat a couple of men. He got right near the dead ball line, really close, narrow angle, and I'm pretty sure he had a shot with his left foot and it went into the side netting. It was never a chance in a million years. It wasn't really a chance even when he shot. And it certainly wasn't a chance when he received the ball out on the touchline and dribbled past a couple of players. So what they're actually counting as a chance is when somebody takes a shot. We could do a whole show on this because obviously we don't know what they're counting as a chance. So this comes down to coaching. Going off that game against West Ham, if the criteria, we don't know if the criteria has changed or if the criteria is the same, but all I can go off is what I saw the other week and what I watched. When I watched it, by the way, I counted 3 of them as genuine chances. 3 of them. One of those was the goal that Pogba smashed in the top corner from about 35 yards. Bruno did roll that to him, perfectly weighted. For him to have a shot, it definitely counts as a chance created. But even then, even though it is a chance created, it was a chance created, he rolled it to him for him to have a shot. But come on, how many people are going to smash it in the top corner from there like Pogba did? It's not going to happen for you very often, is it? But it was a chance created. So the ones that were actually chances created for me were 3. out of 7. So the commentator has said 7 chances. I'm building back here to this thing about the chances on here. So I'm counting 3 of those as chances, and 4 of them weren't chances, but the people who he happened to pass the ball to decided to have a shot. Now this is important. Don't forget, they're counting them as chances created because the person who he passed the ball to decided to have a shot. Now then, I think that Louis van Gaal was drumming it into his players. And this shows, by the way, in the next stat. Chances created, 121, 15th in the league. Goals, 20, 8th in the league. So, we're obviously scoring goals at a decent rate, or a much better rate than you would imagine for the chances created. We've ranked 15th for chances created, but 8th for goals scored. So I think they're counting genuine chances in this particular instance. Genuine chances. And I believe that the coach, and I think this was part of Louis van Gaal's philosophy, I think the coach is coaching them not to shoot from stupid positions, not to take unnecessary risks, and keep the ball and pass it around and try to create genuine chances. So there's another thing that I want to add to this. Not only are they not taking shots on that they shouldn't be taking on, which is then reducing the number of chances created. Don't forget, I'm talking about if this criteria is the same as the criteria from when I watched the West Ham game. If the criteria is the same, if people would have shot, say, 7 times from 7 positions where it wasn't sensible to shoot from, that would be counted as 7 more chances created. But the coach is telling them not to shoot from stupid positions because they're not really chances. So if you balance the two things up, you know, what was the criteria that day to call it a chance? So if you're going to pass the ball to someone who's on the wing and he decides to step in and have a shot and it flies 10 yards over the bar or 12 yards wide, in the criteria that I saw the other week, that still counts as a chance created. In this scenario, the players are not doing that. And if they were doing that, would they be counted as chances created? So the actual chances created, I've got 2 positives, 2 equals, and 1 negative so far out of 5. And this is a new result, if you like. This is a new result. This one is purely and simply, I don't believe it, and you can't trust it. Don't believe it, can't trust it, and you don't know what the criteria is for the chance created. So forget that one. It's a complete load of rubbish, chances created. And then one that you can't argue with, the only one that's absolutely a 100% mathematical certainty, by the way, out of all of those stats, is the fact, because it's in the back of the onion bag, isn't it? They've scored 20 goals, which is 8th in the table. Now, by Manchester United standards, 8th in the table isn't good enough. But think of this. It isn't good enough. But think of this. That table is up there to make United look bad. And there's 6 different categories in which we are first, in categories where people are supposedly going to think you don't want to be first in that, you want to be last in that. Then there's 3 other categories where we're 15th, 19th and 20th, where you would want to be higher and you're not higher. But the one category that's an absolute mathematical certainty is actually the best of the lot, even though it's only 8th. It's still the best of the lot, and it's a mathematical certainty. So I don't not think it. I'm telling you for an absolute fact that table there is virtually irrelevant. I don't care. He was working on something. He was trying to build something. He had his own philosophy. The lack of chances created purely means that the players weren't shooting from stupid positions, and the possession was fine. They were working on possession. They were working on a possession-based game that they were trying to improve. It doesn't happen overnight, and they want to start having that possession further up the field as they get stronger and get 1 or 2 more players in as well. Don't forget, he was desperate for a striker. He knew he was desperate for a striker, and he was hoping to get one that summer. but obviously they sacked him instead. I was devastated they sacked him. Before I go on to some more of your questions, Rahul, one or two other things I just want to mention about Man Utd. I've seen on Twitter this morning that we've only, and games against Liverpool to me are the absolute ultimate game. We've only beaten Liverpool, I've read this morning, at Anfield 3 times in our last 14 attempts. Louis van Gaal played there as our manager twice and won twice. But for Louis van Gaal being our manager on those 2 occasions, we might be sat here with 1 win in 14, and I won't be very happy about that at all. I've looked at our finishes in the table, since the gaffer retired, 7th under Moyes, 4th and 5th under Van Gaal, 6th and 2nd under Jose, and 6th, and only half a season, but still, 6th and 3rd under Ole. So top 4, 1 in 2 for each of the managers. I think we're going, and also trophies. Obviously, Jose won the Europa League Cup. Probably trophy. Well, it was Jose's tenure was slightly more successful trophies wise, but at least we won the FA Cup under Van Gaal, which I was over the moon with winning an FA Cup. By the way, that's where we are these days. But I also, when we talk about trying to build and trying to play the game the way he wanted to play the game, the way I like to see the game played, with lots of passing, lots of possession-based football, like the top teams do, by the way. Like the top, everybody's saying they don't like it. If we were playing like Bayern Munich now and winning the European Cup and winning the league, you'd be over the moon with it. I promise you, you'd be absolutely over the moon with it, and that's the target. And I've just written, because I remember this so fondly, I've just checked it to make sure I've made no mistakes. But I remember this tiny little period so fondly, and this is the sort of thing he was building towards. We beat Spurs 3-0, we beat Liverpool away 2-1, we beat Villa 3-1, and we beat City 4-2 in 4 consecutive league games under LVG. And for me, LVG was the pick of the managers that we've had so far. I hope Ollie can bump him off that perch, but for me, he remains my favourite manager post-Fergie so far. So that's the LVG thing out of the way. Sorry that took so long. So I won't have time to go through everything, Rahul, but I've gone through that. So I'll just answer a few more of your questions. Your philosophy is resonant to his philosophy. Reminds you of my philosophy, which is keeping hold of the ball, passing it simply, correct, and cleverly. Correct, I like that. And not create. I don't like that. No, we do want to create. We do want to create. We want to create by playing beautiful football. Pass, move, pass, move, pass, move. Build it up, get an opening, get somebody in behind, get it across the face of the goal, get on the end of it. No, not create. I don't agree with that. Or play fancy balls. No, I'm not a fan of fancy balls, no. Brian Clough wasn't a fan of fancy balls either. When there isn't one to be played. No, I don't. The stats speak for themselves. We barely created any chances you put. Well, hopefully I've just explained that. It says we didn't create any chances. You don't know it to be true. And you don't know what they're counting as chances compared to what they count as chances. You really don't know that to be true, Rahul, I promise you. If 30 of our if on 30 occasions our players would have had a shot that wasn't worth taking, it'd be down there as a chance created. So forget that one. It doesn't mean we barely created any chances whatsoever. That's borne out by the amount of goals we scored for the chances. 18 goals scored, although 15th in chances created. They're only taking shots from genuine chances. The next one, you've put almost certainly, remember the run we were on, scoring almost no goals for a stretch in a period. You do have stretches of games where you don't score goals. I remember Anthony Marshall being out last season for 9 games. We didn't score more than 1 goal in any one of the 9 games that Anthony Marshall missed injured. And you will have little runs like that. There might, well, I don't remember it, but there might well have been a run where we weren't scoring goals under LVG. But we've had them before, and we will have them again. You understand that Bruno isn't my cup of tea. It's only the amount of long and difficult passes that he tries. He seems to have cut out the amount of ridiculous shots. He mind you, saying that the other night, I think he took 3. But anyway, his shooting overall, I think he has improved it. I might be wrong on that. I'd have to check a few games. But surely you acknowledge that he brings what I call the X factor you've written. And if nothing, he works hard. He definitely works hard, mate. I've never said he doesn't. He works his socks off. Every time I discuss him, I always say he works his socks off. There's no two ways about that. Sometimes, for me, if it's possible to work too hard on a football pitch, I think he works too hard. I don't like to see one of my midfield players charging up the field to try and charge down the goalkeeper, which occasionally works for you. It worked for us at West Ham. We got a goal out of it, which occasionally works for you, but very, very rarely. And what happens more often is they pass it to the fullback while you're charging the keeper down, and then we've got a big hole in the midfield. So he works, to me, he could do with calming down a little bit, to be honest, at times. The X factor, I do get that. He's definitely got the X factor. His figures cover that without a doubt. He's scoring enough goals and getting enough assists. That's fine. I can't argue with that. In fact, there is a statistic that says he's covered 20 more kilometres than any other United player this season. That's astonishing. We were also 12 points behind the top four before his arrival. Went undefeated in the league last season after his arrival. I don't know about, I was about to say that's all true. I don't know about the 20 kilometres covered. If that is a stat that's out there, if that's true, I'm sure more than half of that is down to him charging the goalkeeper down, and he could do with stopping that, to be honest, and covering a little bit less ground. Yeah, we were 12 points behind. We did finish in the top four. It's a little bit churlish, or it would be a little bit churlish of me to say that he didn't have a lot to do with that. Of course, he had a lot to do with that. What I will say is that it came into a team that was. There's a couple of things. There's a lot more than a couple of things to discuss. We became more defensively solid around the time that Bruno came into the team. Okay, I know we just got beaten 2-0 by Burnley and it was a disaster, and I know Matic played in that game. You're not going to win every game. You are going to have the odd disaster. We've had disasters since Bruno came in as well, don't forget. We've had numerous disasters. So there's no point saying, look, that happened. So we did lose at 2-0 to Burnley the game before he played. But we were starting to get more solid. Matic hadn't been in the team until around the time about New Year, just after Christmas. I think Matic came into the team. So I believe we were starting to get a little bit more solid. He came into a team that was starting to improve, but we weren't starting to improve enough. And one thing that I cannot for the life of me understand is why Pereira played so many games before Bruno signed. We didn't need to be as ordinary as we were. I don't care what anyone says. If anybody wants to argue with me, I will say to you, and I don't like being rude, that you don't understand the game. If you think Pereira is fit to lace Juan Mata's boots, I will tell you that you don't know the first thing about the game. Juan Mata's still a quality player now. He's only 32 now, so he was only 31 when we signed Bruno. So all that time Pereira was playing in midfield in front of Juan Mata. What Ollie was doing, why Ollie was picking Pereira in front of Juan Mata. So although he improved us dramatically, so I'm not necessarily saying that it would have been better with Juan Mata when Bruno signed. I'm just telling you what we should have been like before Bruno signed. And we shouldn't have been as poor as we were. Juan Mata should have been playing in that position and was hardly getting any games. And what something else that has astonished me really, there's normally like a bit of a pecking order in football. A player who gets budged out of the team by a new signing would normally go on the bench, and then a player on the bench would lose his place. But Pereira's been bombed out of the team and gone straight past the bench, and Juan Mata's still the man who we use fairly often when we need a bit of a creative spark or when we want to give players a rest. Why isn't Pereira the man who's now on the bench as our substitute creative spark or our player who we can play when we want to give somebody a rest? The reason for that is he isn't half the player that Juan Mata is. That's why. But Ollie appears to have understood that. But why didn't he understand that when Pereira was playing all the time? So we didn't need to be as bad as we were. I'm not saying that we might not have improved still, fair enough. but we didn't need to be as bad as we were, and the improvement shouldn't necessarily have been as dramatic as it was. Now, other things that happened, he played 5 games before lockdown, that's all. Played 5 games before lockdown. We drew with Wolves, we beat Watford, we beat City, we beat Chelsea. I'm only talking league games, of course, and the 5th one escapes me for a minute. I used to know these right off the top of my head. But he played 5 games, and then what happened then, the 5 games, by the way, I call it, it's like an honeymoon period. You get a new player and you get that bump, oomph. And then what happened after lockdown, Paul Pogba was fit. So he only played 5 games before Pogba became fit. So Pogba then started to play straight after lockdown. So the team became a bit stronger again. And then we had yet another honeymoon period. We played Spurs and we drew. And then we had 4 games on the bounce that we won by 3 clear goals, which was a Premier League record. And that was a little bit to do with a new bounce, if you like. Bruno and Pogba in the same team for 4 games. It was the first 4 games that they played together. So don't tell me that wasn't a little bit to do with that honeymoon period of having Bruno and Pogba in the same team for 4 weeks. And Pogba had been injured all season. He'd only played about 3 games. So a lot of things fell into place, of which Bruno was one. So as much as he had an hand in it, it's not quite as much as people like to believe, as far as I'm concerned. The next thing you've asked me, player of the month for 4 months since he's been here. This is only his 8th month. I get that. How on earth he's done that is beyond me. Absolutely beyond me. I don't know how. Is this a voting thing? But it doesn't really matter who votes or who decides. It's just a decision that's made, whether it's made by thousands of people or 2 people or 1 person. I don't care. That's their opinion. But I've looked at the records over the years since they've been having this player of the month. Sergio Aguero's won it 7 times. Steven Gerrard and Harry Kane 6 times. Van Persie and Rooney 5 times. So Aguero, Gerrard, Kane, Van Persie and Rooney are the only players that have won it more often than Bruno Fernandes, and he's only been in the league 8 months. It does not reflect, trust me, it does not reflect how good the player is that's won it 4 times in 8 months. What it reflects is how stupid the people are that give the award out. Paul Scholes, who won 11 league titles and played for United for 13 seasons, and Ryan Giggs, who won 13 league titles, and did he play for 13 or 14 seasons and 2 European Cups? Paul Scholes has won it 4 times, the same as Bruno. Ronaldo, who played for us for about 5 years, won it 4 times. Thierry Henry won it 4 times. Alan Shearer won it less than that because he's not on that list. Ryan Giggs won it twice. Ryan Giggs has won 13 Premier League titles. It's just a trophy that's decided by people. It's completely irrelevant. So putting it forward to say that it proves that somebody's a good player, could I turn that round? If you're saying to me that proves that Bruno's a good player or a great player, I'm not saying he's not, by the way. You're putting it to me. He's a great player, or he's a good player because he's won 4 player of the months in 8 months. Well, Paul Scholes only won it 4 times in 13 years, so he must have been crap, was it? Is that what that means? It must be. Surely Paul Scholes has got to win it once a season. Surely he's got to have 12 or 13 of them if the people who pick it know what they're talking about. If the people who vote on it know what they're talking about. I'm not even seeing Roy Keane on the list, by the way. Maybe Roy Keane was too aggressive in his play or something. He must be on that list. I'm sure I'll check that later, but I didn't even see Roy Keane. So, yeah, I'm not interested in Player of the Month awards. Completely disinterested. I'm no stranger to his goal involvement stats, as you say. Yeah, I completely agree with that. His goal involvement stats are through the roof, and long may it continue. Look, we're in a position that we're in at the minute. I'm hoping we can win this league. if I wouldn't have even dreamt of saying that to you before the ball was kicked this season, thinking that we could win this league. We have got to this position where we are 3 points in front. We could go 6 points in front of Liverpool. Depending on other results, I think we'd be 4 points ahead in the table because other teams can go above Liverpool if we beat them. But to be 4, 5 or 6 points, whatever it is, top of the table tomorrow if we win, would be absolutely astonishing. I would absolutely love it. What I will say is the style of football that we've played this season, and I've said it time and again, I'll be staggered if we can play in that style and win the league. If we do keep playing in this style and win this league, and I've said this once before, and I mean it, if we keep playing like this and win this league, then I think I'll stop doing Twitter and stop doing YouTube, because I'll be astonished if we can win it playing like this. Doesn't mean we can't win it. We can change our style. We can change our style, but I do think we will need to change our style. So how we've got to where we are is astonishing, I think, playing the type of football that we're playing. I think I've covered enough there. Many of his fancy balls don't reach the intended teammates, but the last bit there, I know it goes on a bit further, Rahul, but I haven't got time to cover everything. I hope you've enjoyed the little bit that I've said, and I hope you've taken something from it. And I don't know if you'll probably come back to me on Twitter, will you, and say a couple of things. But I do believe in everything that I've said. Many of his fancy balls don't reach intended teammates, I agree, but it's because he tries them that we're even having this conversation about them. Well, that's true, Rahul, but think about what you're saying. You know, we're talking about somebody trying difficult passes that aren't coming off, and that is why we're talking about it. It's not a positive that he tries them, so we're talking about it. It's a negative that if we give the ball away too often, I believe that we can't win the major trophies playing that style of football. So that is why we're talking about it, but it doesn't make it a good thing. So that's that, Rahul. Thank you, mate. It was really interesting and well thought out and well put forward. And I do agree with one or two of things that you've said, but I've got to be honest, as I've said, 90%, well, I don't know, 80 or 90% of it about the stats. Some of it I don't agree with, but some of it, like I've said, is irrelevant. Doesn't matter. Some of it is the stats about Van Gaal, for example. Most of them are just irrelevant. Don't matter. It's about playing good football, building a team. He wasn't given a chance, which you said, by the way, at the beginning of it, that he didn't get very long. There's nothing we can do about that now, which is a perfectly sensible way of looking at it. He didn't get very long. I believe he was starting to get somewhere. And I think if he'd have signed a top striker that summer, I do think we could have really gone places. So that's that. Should we discuss the Liverpool game, or is it people asking questions?
I haven't interrupted too much because I know you've been intentionally responding to that, to that tweet from Rahul. But I think just a couple of shout outs to people in the chat. PMV Patrick, who's contributed a super chat. Thank you very much, Patrick. We've now appointed a couple of moderators in the chat because it was just too much for me to keep up with. So Thomas, Omar and Rahul, who's actually sent you that tweet, are now moderators in the chat for us. So Thank you, lads.
Thanks, lads. Appreciate that. Really do. Not that I understand it all, by the way, but I'll take his word for it.
Yeah. Probably everybody kind of... I think some people are disappointed that you don't read the chat, but just explain to people a bit how much of a technophobe you are, so you can't really do it.
I'm 62, lads. When we first got a computer in the office and I touched the mouse and the screen moved, I jumped back. Oh, what's happened there?
Someone has to be here to reading these chats out. Maybe we might be able to improve on that somehow moving forward. Big shout out to Soph in the chat. Thanks for coming in, Soph.
Looking forward to it, love, tomorrow. Can't wait.
And then there's a lot of people asking lots of questions, and I'm really sorry, but I can't go back through them all now because we've gone on so much.
I've gone on too long, yeah.
But I'll come to try and pick out a couple of questions that have come in most recently. Bear with me a second. Obviously, there's a few people asking about tomorrow. Probably best to move on, have a chat about tomorrow, see what questions come in. Yeah,
definitely.
People saying, what do you think Bailey should be playing tomorrow?
No, I think Lindelof and Maguire, I've had this quite a bit on Twitter today. There's lots to talk about that. I do think you will see Lindelof and Maguire play. I shouldn't really use it as proof that I'm saying Lindelof and Maguire is the best pairing, because I do believe Ollie gets some things wrong, but I do believe he gets that bit right. If you think back to last season, when we played Chelsea away, we won 2-0. Bailey played. He played perfectly fine. Lindelof was injured though, and Bailey played as one of the 3 centre-backs. But in all the other big games where we played 3 centre-backs, if you think about the City game at Old Trafford, it was Lindelof, Maguire and Shaw, and Bailey was on the bench. Towards the end of that game, Williams was having a struggle with Mahrez, a real struggle with Mahrez, and he took Williams off and he put Shaw to left back and brought Bailey on at centre back for about 20 minutes, perhaps 15 minutes. And at the time, doesn't necessarily mean it's the case now. A long time ago, but it's a few months later. But at the time, Bailey was fully fit. Don't forget, he played a full game at Chelsea. We're not talking about he played a game in the FA Cup against a 3rd Division outfit. He played a full game at Chelsea. But then when we played City, literally a couple of weeks later, we played with 3 centre-backs. And Bailey wasn't even one of the centre-backs. He was on the bench. It was Lindelof, Maguire and Shaw. I actually think he's come round confidence-wise in his defence now. I think we'll play with a back 4 tomorrow. I really do. And I will be surprised if the 2 centre-backs are not Lindelof and Maguire.
A couple of people have mentioned in the chat, obviously I know it's doing around on Twitter at the moment, about Dalot and a couple of clubs being interested in signing Dalot. What's your take on Dalot? There's someone who asked a specific question a second ago actually about him. Andy Hawkins' opinions on Dalot and a backup right back.
I did a thread. I'll be able to retweet that when we finish, won't I?
Yeah.
I did a thread about Dalot's game at Newcastle when I was on the United stand one night a couple of months ago. Saeed was saying how poor he thought Dalot was and what a bad game he had at Newcastle. He mentioned the game at Newcastle where we got beat 1-0 last season. So I went back over the game. I had most of the games recorded on my TV and I keep them. So I watched it again and I thought he played quite well. And I did a thread showing why I thought he played quite well. And that'll still be on Twitter, so I'll retweet that later. But what I didn't know when I started to watch it was that he only played for an hour. He got injured. He does seem to have injury problems, I think. He only played for an hour. He got injured and went off. But he played perfectly fine. And I think he's a proper decent player. I think he's a good passer of the ball, a good crosser of the ball. I see a lot of people talk about his defensive capabilities not being quite good enough, or some people saying they're terrible, but I don't think you can be terrible and end up playing for Manchester United and Inter Milan and Barcelona are supposed to be interested in him.
So I'm reading, yeah.
So I don't think he can be terrible just going by that. But what I noticed in that game against Newcastle, he was playing, how do you pronounce his name? Maximan, is he called, the winger who's tricky and pretty quick.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Apologies if I've mispronounced his name, but I thought Dalot had a decent game against him. He showed him inside, showed him into the crowd. You know, a lot of people think to be playing well defensively, you've got to be charging into tackles. It's not necessarily the case. You can stay on your feet and use your head. And you know, he had a pretty decent game. And I'll just add, by the way, I know it's only Newcastle away, but it was 0-0 when he went off, and we got beat 1-0. So, and our best 2 chances, by the way, if I remember rightly, they're on the thread. I will retweet it. But I think our best 2 chances on the night were created by Diego Dalot, or certainly the best 2 chances before he went off the field. Oh no, I'll tell you what it was. I think he created 1 chance. He also, from that chance, that's what it was. From that chance, we got the corner that Maguire should have scored from. So he created 1 of them. But by that good piece of play, we should have had a goal out of it, at least. You know, if not then, but from the corner. Obviously,
the Bailey Lindelof subject has been one that's rumbling on, and people desperate to see Bailey and Maguire. And I know you've been vocal about this on Twitter. But Sarah A says that when we play Lindelof and Maguire together, we never keep a clean sheet. But it's not necessarily the fact that we don't keep a clean sheet with them 2 players isn't necessarily the direct result, is it? It's not just because you've picked those 2 defenders that you don't keep a clean sheet. So we've not been keeping clean sheets for so long because of the shape that we've been playing. The shape seems to have slightly adjusted at the same time as also starting to play Maguire. You know, he seems to have accepted the fact that he's got to play a more defensive style, doesn't he? We've played Pogba as well as two holding midfield players.
Even though one of them was Pogba, who's been playing that role, hasn't he?
Yes.
He's been more restrictive, hasn't he? Stayed back a bit more. So we have started playing with two more defensive midfield players, which we did that straight after the first few games, didn't we? We started doing that when we got battered by Spurs and what have you. But it's not, it's a difficult one to say. And look, it's difficult for me to mention this because I'm always saying that our clean sheet ratio is through the roof when Matic plays compared to when he doesn't play, which it is. But at the same time, and this can be levelled at Matic as well, because somebody's put that on about Bailey. But Bailey's been playing, and look, he's played in some decent games, of course he has. But a lot of these stats come to the fore because he's played against the smaller teams as well, where we've kept clean sheets, if you understand what I mean. Somebody has to play in the League Cup ties and the FA Cup ties against small teams, Europa League games last season. So that's another part of it. It's not the only reason, but it's part of the reason. But when you say clean sheets, we drew 0-0 with City the other week. Lindelof played and Wayne Maguire. We drew 0-0 with Chelsea. It was Lindelof and Maguire. We beat. I'm only mentioning big teams, by the way. We beat City 2-0 just before the end of last season with Lindelof and Maguire, or just before lockdown. So we do keep some clean sheets with Lindelof and Maguire playing, and we do keep some clean sheets against top teams as well, not just against the poorer teams.
A couple more before we go, do you think?
Yeah.
Bring it to an end.
Two more, yeah.
Yeah, a couple more. PJ Hans, hi Ricky. Why do you think that most United fans overrate Rashford so much?
Why do most United fans overrate him? Well, it's the hype, isn't it? Look, he's rate. Look, how much overrated is he? Some people call him world class, and I just don't see that one little bit. I don't see it. He's overrated mainly because of word of mouth and the media, and basically one person passing information on to the next person, and it just grows and snowballs, and people hear and read and see things spoken about without. Look, I bet you there's 500,000 people on this planet who will, probably more than that, who will tell you what a great player Marcus Rashford is, who have never actually seen him kick a ball ever once in their lives, even on the telly.
Yeah.
It's just news, it's just information that goes out there. Now, it's pretty similar, not as heavy, but it's pretty similar with what's going on, I think, with Eric Bailly at the minute. Somebody said that we've got the little bit of pace behind Maguire that helps, and there's thousands of people on Twitter saying, oh, we've got the pace of Bailey behind Maguire and he can cover Maguire. I saw a situation in that game, and I think I put it on Twitter, where Bailey got beat in the air and Maguire covered behind and kicked it out. You know what I mean? And Maguire had to be sharp on his toes to clear it. Two centre-backs work as a pairing and cover each other, but somebody's put this out there that Bailey's speed is handy. It can be handy, but I'll tell you something else. It probably isn't that much quicker. Premier League footballers, by definition, are fit, mobile young men. Now, obviously, some are going to be slower than others, and some are going to be quicker than others. But in the main, they're all going to be in a particular brand of speed. If you
they're all roughly doing 100 metres between 11 and 15 seconds,
11
aren't
and 12.
11, yeah, probably. Yeah,
probably between 11 and 12 seconds. Yeah. And there's going to be the odd one that can do the 100 metres quicker than 11 seconds, and I'll be surprised if Bailey's one of them.
Yeah.
You're talking there, that's proper fast.
Yeah.
You're talking about Andrei Kanchelskis, Gareth Bale, your real speed merchant. Adam Traore, by the way.
What was he called? The Danish lad who was lightning. What was he called?
But, there is the odd one who's got extra special pace. And then there's going to be the odd one who gets by without having pace. Jan Molby springs to mind. Do you know what I mean? But in general, I reckon probably 99% of the Premier League footballers could do the 100 metres between 11 and 12 seconds, and only a few of them can do it quicker, and only a few of them can get away without doing it in that band. Do you know what I mean? So, and I think Bailey's probably in that middle band, as will Victor Lindelof be, as will Harry Maguire be. I bet you me bottom dollar all three. I bet you me bottom dollar none of them three can run the 100 metres faster than 11 seconds, and I bet you me bottom dollar none of them are slower than 12 seconds either.
Yeah, it's funny how that kind of narrative spreads amongst a community of football fans about whatever it is, whatever the hot topic is, and then people become so blinded by it. And I think it's the case. It's the case with Rashford being a top player. I'm pretty sure that if Aston Villa signed Rashford, Aston Villa's not fair. They're performing particularly well at the moment. But if a team around the bottom half of the league signed Rashford, I don't think he'd just go straight into the team and make a great difference for him. I think, do you know what I mean? I don't think he just immediately goes into Crystal Palace's team straight away and makes a world of difference. I think Crystal Palace play in a way where they need people, and they need certain players. They need to be more physical. They need to be more determined, defensive. They need to have different attributes. So I'm not quite sure where his level should be. And then obviously the Bailey thing with the pace. Again, I think that's a similar situation. It's been said and it spreads. But sorry to come back onto Bruno. But with Bruno, it's almost like the goal involvements that he's had now. I've seen this discussed on Twitter a few times with people, that it's like if we didn't have Bruno now, he had 32 goals assists in his time at United so far.
Goals and assists, I think.
Goal involvement.
A hell of a lot, yeah.
If we'd have just removed Bruno and played Juan Mata, you just wouldn't be 32 goals worse off.
No.
Bruno used to play for Sporting Lisbon. He's left Sporting Lisbon. Sporting Lisbon are doing just fine.
Yeah.
They're ticking on.
Absolutely.
They've not spent 50 million quid to replace him.
Yeah.
They've now not got Bruno. They've not collapsed, and that's Sporting Lisbon.
Yeah.
You would think that if we decided to put our best player up for sale now and Sporting Lisbon bought him, you'd expect him to go and change that. Completely revolutionise what they're doing, wouldn't you?
Actually doing a bit better with that way.
Do you know what I mean?
Shall we move on?
Yeah, I think we probably should. I think we probably bring it to an end. Actually, we've been on for a while.
Last one. Very last one.
Last one. Let's have a look here. Ricky, would you take Declan Rice at United?
Yeah, 100%. Right, should we call it a day? Yeah, I like him, Declan Rice. Good player. Yeah, very, very good player. They're playing today, aren't they, West Ham? Yeah, they are. I might go and watch the second half now. Yeah. Someone
called Fabian Delphin here is obviously just touching on what you've just said about the obviously you've spoke about it already. It's the player of the month awards that he's been getting. That's not justification.
Yeah.
For him actually being a top player. It's just a popularity contest.
Popularity contest. That's all it is.
It's a popularity contest.
Yeah. Why Paul Scholes wasn't popular, I've got no idea.
Yeah.
Why Ryan Giggs? David Beckham's not on that list, is it? I don't think David Beckham's got 4 or more. Do you know what I mean? It's just ridiculous. It doesn't matter. Now, why wouldn't David Beckham be a popular? I thought with his...
I don't know.
You know.
I honestly don't know.
It's mind-boggling.
Wrap it up.
If that proves that he's a great player, Paul Scholes must have been shocking. Right. I hope you've enjoyed that show. We'll be back tomorrow live for half an hour, seeing when the team news comes out. What's a 4:30 kickoff tomorrow, I think, isn't it? So 3:30 the news. So about 3:15 tomorrow we'll be live again. If you've enjoyed the show, tell all your friends. If you did.